Good evening, candidates and audience members. Thank you for attending the League of Women Voters of Santa Fe County's Candidate Forum for the U.S. Representative District 3. I'm Hannah Burling, and I will be the moderator. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Santa Fe County, I want to express our gratitude to the Santa Fe New Mexican for broadcasting our candidate forums this year as a service to the community. Let me introduce Bill Church, the editor of the Santa Fe New Mexican. Bill?
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you all for attending the second of the League of Women Voters of Santa Fe County. Sorry, got my head focused a little bit on a hurricane right now. So I hope you all had a chance to pick up Friday's edition of the Santa Fe New Mexican. I'm not hawking newspapers. You can get this section of the League of Women Voters also outside. But on page 2 are profiles and questionnaires from our two candidates today. This is going to be, like most elections, a monumental one. And the House could be in play, as could be the Senate. So what happens in the 3rd Congressional District can go a long way towards determining not only what happens in New Mexico, but across the country. On behalf of my publisher, Pat Dorsey, our owner, Robin Martin, and the employees of the Santa Fe New Mexican our paper's been here 175 years. Thank you. The oldest in the West, and probably the oldest in New Mexico, too. We are thrilled to be partnering with the League of Women Voters. So, Hannah, let's just do this.
Thank you, Bill. The League is committed to civil discourse. The candidates have agreed to follow the League protocols for candidate forums, including respecting the time limits for their responses, not engaging in crosstalk, and being mutually respectful, courteous, constructive, and orderly, even when they disagree. The questions we ask will be selected by our screening panel to focus on the issues that seem to generate the most interest. Questions that are similar will be consolidated, and questions that are directed to one candidate or contain a personal attack will be eliminated. Due to time constraints, not all questions can be asked. We invite you to stay after the forum to talk to the candidates. If you haven't already submitted your questions, you can email them to lwvsfc@gmail.com now or at any time during the forum. For those of you who are attending in person, write your question on the 3x5 note cards that are being distributed. Submit one question per note card and write legibly, please. Hold the card up when finished. Wave it so our runners can pick it up. Our timekeeper, Sharon Potter, is sitting in the front. When a candidate has 15 or 30 seconds left, depending on minutes assigned to the question, she will hold up a yellow warning sign. And when your time is up, she will hold up the red stop sign. At that point, we ask that you wind up your response immediately. If not, I will interrupt out of fairness to all. In the interest of time, please save your applause until the end of the forum. Before I introduce the candidates, I want to review the responsibilities of the U.S. Representative District 3. Represents New Mexico in the United States House of Representatives. The House has 435 members elected from districts based on population. New Mexico is entitled to 3 members. Candidates must be at least 25 years old, a United States citizen for 7 years, and must be a resident of New Mexico. Representatives are elected by district for a 2-year term. We will begin with 2-minute opening statements by the candidates and conclude with 1-minute closing statements. First, we will hear from candidate Teresa Leger Fernandez.
Hello. I'm your congressional representative representing the beautiful and beautifully diverse 3rd Congressional District. This election reminds me of a story that many of you know, our acequias. As an acequia commission, I worked together with all of the other pacientes to clean that ditch so that we could have clean water and water flowing into our farms and our orchards. Everybody who worked on the ditch owned a little bit of that stream, the same way every American owns a little bit of the American dream. But we all need to work together to make that American dream a reality because we are bigger. We are part of something bigger, which is America. But we need to work together, building each other up, not tearing each other down. I have been working to solve with you the issues that we face, like the high cost of living. To address the housing crisis, I've introduced legislation and brought home funding to help you buy a home of your own. As a breast cancer survivor, I know the high cost of medical care. I've passed laws to bring down the cost of prescription drugs, of healthcare premiums, to cap insulin at $35. New Mexicans also want me to help them protect their freedoms. Every woman deserves the freedom to make her own decisions about her reproductive health care and abortion. So the same way we want that water to flow in our streams, we want that federal money to flow into New Mexico. I have brought home $3.95 billion to help the fire victims, about $787 million for water projects in my district, and over $8.3 billion in manufacturing, renewable energy, and a lot more in terms of infrastructure. I look forward to working for you if you re-elect me to make sure the water flows as well as the money.
Thank you. Now, candidate Sharon Klaczys-Shillage.
Good evening, and thank you for this forum. I really appreciate this, and I appreciate the editor who was here a while ago. Thank you for this time. I'm Sharon Klaczys-Shillage, and I'm a candidate for U.S. Congress, New Mexico District 3. And I am running because I'm very concerned about the lack of representation to many of our 18 counties within District 3. There are some serious areas that are not represented in Congress that I'm very concerned about. And these are areas in the area of infrastructure. I'm very concerned that our district is aging, and we have issues like what happened in your area, the water issues, and the pipes busting. Those are infrastructure problems that need to be taken care of. We also have a lot of our communities drowning or have areas just overflow with water because of rain. And we need those areas taken care of so our communities aren't flooded out. Those are examples of what I'm concerned about. Our communities are in great need of a lot of assistance in those areas, but that carries a high price tag. And so these are the concerns I'm very concerned about. I'm very concerned about representation, and that's what I intend to be talking about this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to the first question. The time limit for answering, I believe, all of the questions will be 1 minute. And we'll begin with candidate Teresa Leger Fernandez. The question is on personal motivation. What personal experiences have shaped your political beliefs and priorities?
As you know, I am deeply in love with New Mexico. I'm a rural New Mexican, daughter of educators who dedicated themselves to making sure that everybody received an education. They made sure that all languages, whatever language was spoken in your kitchen, needed to be spoken in the classroom. And I grew up with that love of community. And in my work before I got to Congress, I represented diverse areas of the community, building health clinics, businesses, making sure that water was flowing. So I am taking that love of community, but that deep experience making things happen, building things, fighting for voting rights, especially in this moment of democracy. And that is part of what I am taking with me to Congress. I am motivated to keep doing the work that we have been involved in for the last 4 years, especially those first 2 years in Congress where we did so much historic investments in rural America, the largest infrastructure spending that we've seen since the New Deal. All of that was incredibly satisfying, and I want to continue that work with deep, deep love for my community, taking the voices of the people from the 3rd Congressional District to the halls of Congress.
And candidate Claudia Schillich.
Thank you. What has impacted my life, my personal area, is being without. Being without a lot of what is available within America. Not having water, not having electricity, not having sewage, not having access to a lot of what the outside of my reservation has. I'm a Navajo, and I'm from the Navajo Reservation. And I come from a political family who has fought for all of these areas and has worked very hard to get a lot of our issues voiced and acted upon. Voting, for example. Thank you, League of Women, for making your stand and for being advocates for voting. But that was an area that we finally got. So those are some of the areas I'm very concerned about, and I'm a product of not having had a lot of that. Thank you.
Okay. Our next question.
I think maybe you're holding up for 30 seconds when it's only 15.
Actually, my thing isn't working. I was kind of counting in my head. It's working fine. Do you want me to do it? You can start. Okay. And let me figure out how to make this work.
All right. This question is, what are the most important issues facing Congress in the next 2 years? And it's for you, candidate Claudia Schillich.
I don't know what the 2 issues would be, but I would presume that they would be the economy, and I would also presume that they would be the border. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Leger Fernandez.
I think what we need to do in the next 2 years is pick up on the important work that we were doing when Democrats controlled the House, where we did those amazing work like investing in the climate, investing in healthcare, investing in infrastructure, because we need to make sure that we create a situation where life is better for New Mexicans. So that does include addressing the rising cost of living. I've talked about my bill to allow people to buy a home of your own, because that addresses rising rental prices, right? That's an example of where we're going to look for solutions to bring down the cost of living. But also, we need to protect the right of women to decide whether or not they want an abortion and reproductive health care everywhere in the United States.
Thank you. What can be done at the federal level to address the economic anxiety many New Mexicans and other Americans are feeling. Candidate Leger Fernandez.
So once again, the federal government can play an important role in addressing economic issues because we know how hard it is, and we want to help Americans out, hardworking Americans. And so, you know, I've talked about the Home of Your Own Act. I think we also need to recognize that we need to take on greedy corporations. That's what we did when we passed the laws to say we are going to negotiate with Big Pharma. The first 10 medications that we negotiated, we brought it down 60, 70, 80%. And this is an example of how when we are willing to go after those big greedy corporations, we can bring down some of the excessive prices that we are seeing. And so that's something that I'll continue to work on.
Candidate Klasha Chili. Sorry.
Thank you. I believe that to address the area of economy and to address the issue of bringing the economy down, or addressing the economy, I believe what we have to do is look at how we physically manage. It's out of control. We are not physically being the responsible stewards of our budgets. And so a lot of times the money is mismanaged, and I really believe that we need to go into, if we're going to get control, then we need to get into and start practicing fiscal conservatism. Well, I can't even say the word. Anyway, you know what I mean, okay? Fiscal conservative. Yes, that is what we're going to have to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the federal fiscal year just ended with a deficit in excess of $2 trillion. Do you support reductions in spending by the federal government? Candidate Klacha Schulich.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree to reducing our expenditures. It's going to have to be a hard knock. It's going to have to be a hard decision for a lot of people, but we have to do it, and we have to begin somewhere. Yes.
Candidate Leger Fernandez.
Whenever we look at our budget, we need to prioritize working families and middle-class America. And when we take that kind of lens to our budget, it helps us decide what we need to do. We need to remember that the budget deficits we are facing are primarily caused by the big Bush tax cuts and the big Trump tax cuts. Now, who benefited from those huge Trump tax cuts? The wealthiest corporations and the billionaires among us. So I support fiscal policies that say those making more than $400,000 can afford to pay a little bit more in taxes. They don't need those big tax cuts. But the people who do need those tax breaks are like the child care tax credit, right? Where we are focusing on helping out the least among us, those who are working really hard, middle-class families. And when we take that kinds of lens, that tells us what we should do, and it helps guide our fiscal policies. When we do it with the right values in mind, we can make it better for everybody.
Will you advocate for reform to the Social Security system, given that it is the largest federal government spending program? Candidate Leger Fernandez.
Social Security is something that workers have earned, and they all deserve, me included, and everybody probably listening here, to receive the Social Security benefits that they paid into. There is a way in which we can fix Social Security. I am a co-sponsor of a bill called Social Security 2100, a sacred trust. And that would create it would make Social Security fiscally sound by making sure that everybody pays their Social Security taxes, because right now, the wealthy don't. And so it would require those earning more than $400,000 to pay Social Security taxes. That brings enough money into the Social Security fund so that we do not have to cut benefits. I am against the extreme Republicans and Trump's Project 2025, which would cut Social Security. It's not right. People who've earned Social Security deserve to receive those benefits.
Candidate Klatsches Schillage.
I disagree with the fear that currently exists about Social Security. The reason is because Social Security is protected right now. It's in trust. And whenever there is an area in trust, it takes a lot to take it out of trust, believe me. It isn't a stroke of a pen activity. It isn't anything that Congress can just do at one hearing. It's not going to happen as quickly as it's being told to us, the public. So I feel like it's right now fine because it's in trust.
What actions, if any, should Congress take regarding immigration? And Candidate Klatsches Schillage.
Congress should follow the law. Congress should follow laws that address legal immigration. The border cannot continue to be open. I'm concerned about the safety of our people, the safety of New Mexico. I'm particularly concerned about our ranchers down south. People don't believe their story, don't believe what they're going through. So to me, we follow the law and we make sure that we support policies that are legal for the immigrants coming into America.
Candidate Leger Fernandez.
Immigrants play an important role in our economy. They pay taxes. They do hard jobs, especially in areas where we don't have enough workers. The immigration system is broken, and Congress has failed to fix it cycle after cycle after cycle. I support comprehensive immigration reform that actually would provide a pathway to citizenship for hard-working immigrant families, and especially for our dreamers. I also think that we can secure our border. We need to secure our border so that drugs and criminals don't enter. And the way to do that is with bipartisan immigration border laws. Now, Republicans have killed those efforts, but I will support those efforts because it is possible to get it done in a bipartisan manner.
What actions, if any, should Congress take regarding the accessibility, affordability, and quality of health care? Candidate Leger Fernandez.
So Congress has a role to play in preserving the Affordable Care Act and making sure that people have access to quality, affordable health care wherever they live. Everybody deserves good health care wherever they live. As a breast cancer survivor, I know personally how hard it is to pay those bills, to go to those doctor's appointments and have all those surgeries. So we need to make sure that we have more doctors and nurses in rural areas, that we bring down the cost of prescription drugs, and that we keep investing in rural health care, especially for this district, because I will continue to work to make sure that everybody, regardless of your zip code, has access to both affordable and quality health care.
Candidate Klatsches Schillage.
With all due respect, Congresswoman, I need to make you aware of the fact that access...
Excuse me, candidate. No crosstalk is part.
Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, what I want to have known is that many of us in rural District 3 do not have access to a lot of the health services. And the reason is because of how the merging is taking place. We're losing doctors because a lot of the activity is going to like the big health areas like Presbyterian and all, and it's just not working. So we're losing our doctors, we're losing our public health services, and so this is what I see.
Today is the anniversary of the October 7th attack by Hamas on Israel. What role do you think the U.S. should play in this conflict? Candidate Klatscha Shillich?
I think that the United States needs to look at people in the U.S. first. Second should be federal, third should be the foreign countries. Although I do understand that it is very important that we support our ally, and I know it's very important that we look at what is going on internationally because it affects our economy, it affects our products, but still I think a priority needs to be given to the people of the United States. Many of our people in New Mexico are really needing help. And to see the help going elsewhere is very difficult to watch. Thank you.
Candidate Leger Fernandez?
Everybody deserves to feel safe in their home and their homeland. And today marks a sad anniversary of when the Hamas terrorists invaded Israel and killed over 1,200, took all those hostages, including American hostages. And Israel has a right to defend itself, but it must obey international law. I called for ceasefires last year and repeatedly after Netanyahu began his response that killed over 40,000 Palestinians right now. The United States has an obligation to push for ceasefire, to push to make sure that we provide the humanitarian assistance. I have voted for humanitarian assistance to go to Gaza, to go to all those areas that need it. It is our responsibility as leaders in the world to provide that kind of humanitarian assistance to make sure that people do feel safe and have what they need in their homes and in their homelands.
The federal government has to date authorized $175 billion in aid to Ukraine. Do you support this use of taxpayer dollars? Candidate Leger Fernandez?
Absolutely not.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
The United States has an obligation to our allies and across the world to make sure that we protect democracy. If we do not protect democracy across the world, we are at risk in terms of our own security. So I do support the funding that we have sent to Ukraine. We need to push back against Putin's aggression. And I know that the president, the present Republican candidate for president doesn't seem to have a problem with Putin invading Ukraine, but I do. And I am glad that Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, recognize that we must support Ukraine, our democratic ally, in this moment. It is important for the United States national security and for our own democracy to make sure that strong men and bullies like Putin don't get their way.
Candidate Klatscha Shillich?
Okay, thank you. No, I don't support it. I don't support it because there are a lot of issues with Israel that, they're our ally. Priorities should go to Israel. And a lot of what's happening now is because we're not certain about what the stand is all about. What exactly are we supporting when it comes to the Ukrainian government? That is a real concern. And it's back and forth, wishy-washy, and I think we need to clarify that before we go into expending and appropriating more money towards Ukraine. Thank you.
On which two imperative issues do you believe the two parties might collaborate? Candidate Klatscha Shillich?
Okay, you said might collaborate. 2 issues.
2 imperative issues.
Okay, 2 imperative issues. I think there needs to be more talk about the economy. A whole lot of talk about the economy, and then the others, taxes. Those are my 2 areas that are very imperative because they all go back to the economy. Thank you.
Candidate Leger Fernandez.
Well, I've been very lucky in that I've gotten a lot of bipartisan legislation through Congress, and so that's 2 parties working together. I've gotten bipartisan legislation dealing with tribal issues, funding the Indian Health Service, doing a pilot project to make sure that tribes can take over the provision of nutrition programs. So there was a lot of areas in the area of tribal issues where we do collaborate a lot. I think there's also collaboration with regards to agriculture. Representative Massey, who is a member of the Freedom Caucus, and we co-lead a bill together. We're working together on these agricultural issues. And so I have found a lot of area of bipartisanship. I encourage people to go to my website, fernandez.house.gov, and you can see what I'm doing. Sign up for my newsletter. You'll see all of the bipartisan work that I do in Congress.
How would you approach forest management to both prevent fires and defend communities? Candidate Leger Fernandez.
So we need to make sure that we strengthen our resiliency in our forests and that we manage them so that we do not see more of the historic wildfires that we've experienced in New Mexico. So some of the work that I have promoted is I called for an independent investigation into the prescribed burn practices, because we do need to manage them, and that includes thinning, that includes prescribed burns, but we need to make sure that the community is involved. There was a recent bill that was discussed on the floor of the House that cut out community involvement. And so I had to oppose it, even though it had other areas that I could support, like thinning and management, co-management with tribes. But you cannot cut out community involvement. You cannot cut out our environmental laws. And so we need to have more of that work. There's some great work going on up in the Carson Forest where they're hiring people to clear acreage. And it's a great program. Go to my website and you can learn more.
Okay. Candidate Klatscha Shillich.
First of all, when it comes to forest management, we need to make sure that the government does not start forest fires. That's the first thing. We can't be starting forest fires. The second part to that is we need to make sure that we get a change in that area. For too many years, we've had the same problem over and over. And this is a pattern that we're accepting, and it needs to be changed. So we all know there's a flaw in forest management. So we need to take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you. What gun safety law, if any, would you support? Candidate Klatscha Shillich.
Gun safety laws, I would support. I would support, first of all, I come from a tribe who had all our guns retrieved and taken away from us because we were told that we can't start uprises with the government. We can't do any of that. So we were left unarmed. So safety wasn't the issue, and I feel like right now safety is not the issue, it's criminal. You look at the crime involved with guns. I think that needs to be addressed, and that is where I'm coming from when it comes to gun safety. Gun safety comes after the crime issue is taken care of. Thank you.
Candidate Leger Fernandez.
I am like most Americans in that I support gun safety legislation because we must protect our school children, We must curb the scourge of gun violence that we are seeing in the United States. Some of the legislation that I would support would include assault weapon ban, the AR-15s that we see used in mass murders, that were used in recent mass murders in New Mexico. You know, I come from a family of hunters. I hunted. You do not need an assault weapon, a military-style weapon to go hunting. You'd have no deer left to put in your freezer. And there are so many other gun safety legislations that are sensible, common sense, that I would support. And Americans support it. It's time we do something about this scourge. Our children, our school children, deserve to go to school in a safe place.
Thank you. What election and voting reforms would you support, candidate Leger Fernandez?
Voting and election and democracy are at the bedrock of what America is and means to so many. So we need to do everything to support people's ability to participate in elections and vote. I am a proud co-sponsor of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. I am a proud co-sponsor of the Freedom to Vote Act. I sat on the election subcommittee that helped develop these two laws because in too many places they are restricting Americans' access to the ballot. We should celebrate increased voting, not restrict it. And so I think that that is really important because Native Americans, Latinos, those who are less likely and hardest to vote, they are trying to eliminate your ability to vote. And I do not support that. We need democracy. We need election reform.
Candidate Claudia Schillich.
A very sensitive issue. I feel like my voting rights, a lot of us as voting rights, has been taken away. I mean, that's a reality of what we're facing right now. On my reservation, there's activity that's really ridiculous, very ridiculous, and it's the outside coming into the reservation and telling and controlling how the voting is to take place. That needs to stop. Everyone needs to stay in their own area and vote and quit trying to influence for the purpose of getting whomever they're wanting into office. Thank you.
What is your position on climate change and how should Congress address this issue? Candidate Claudia Schillich.
My opinion, my view, is that climate change is resolvable. We look at what is going on at Chaco. We look at the patterns throughout the world. Climate change has been going on for decades, for centuries. And all of a sudden, we're saying that carbon emission, we're saying that gasoline, we're talking about electricity is causing climate change. Not so. The earth is cleansing itself. And this is something that I know you're frowning, but within the patterns of the world, within the patterns of like the Aztecs, Navajo, we're seeing that it is a cleansing process. Thank you.
Candidate Leger Fernandez.
We need to protect what we love, and this beautiful place we love called our planet needs our help. And we need to acknowledge that climate change is real. Look at what's happening in Florida and the, Gulf states. Most dangerous hurricanes ever hitting those places. And that is caused by the fact that we emit so much fossil fuel. But we can do something about it. We must do something about it. And I'm proud that when Democrats were in charge of the House, we passed the biggest investment to address climate change ever, anywhere in the world. And we could do more of that. There are ways in which we can bring down greenhouse gas emissions while also creating lots of new jobs with renewable energy, looking at new technology that can help get us to a new place. And New Mexico is going to be at the forefront of that. We're going to be in the research, we're going to be in the development, and we are going to be generating a Route 66 of clean energy to other parts of the country.
All right. What can the federal government do about water pollution that has already happened? Candidate Leger Fernandez.
So it is important that the federal government look at protecting our most precious resource, water. Always be that water is life. We need to not just make sure that it flows in the acequia, but we need to make sure it is clean when it is flowing in those rivers and when we are pulling it up from the wells who are contaminated. So we need to improve and strengthen our Clean Water Act. We need to push against the Supreme Court decisions that removed protections from New Mexico waters. And so we need to get active in protecting those waters, both the streams, surface waters, and underground waters, because they have both been polluted. But there is technology to do it, and if we invest in it and we commit ourselves to it, we can make that happen. We can clean that precious water of ours.
Candidate Claudia Schillich.
I agree. I agree it can be clean, and I agree that something needs to be done about it, but when? When? Look at how many years we've been trying to get this taken care of. I'm just happy that the greater public recognizes that there's a need in getting this done. My tribe has been fighting and fighting and fighting this for years, decades, centuries. I can say centuries now. So I'm glad that we're finally being listened to. And so, yeah, it needs to happen now because many of us are infected by it and affected by it. Thank you.
What action should we take on a federal level to support and build affordable housing? Candidate Claudia Schillich.
Affordable housing can be built. However, we have a lot of land restrictions. We have a lot of regulations. We have a lot of overreaching regulations that prevent a lot of building of low-income homes or homes in general. These areas need to be looked at, especially here in New Mexico. We have restrictions that are unreasonable. And really, it's almost as if they don't want us to build houses. The government doesn't want us to build houses. This administration doesn't want us to build houses. So all those areas need to be taken care of before we can get in there and start bulldozing. Thank you.
Candidate Leger Fernandez.
A place to live is essential to who we are. It's essential to be able to raise your family, to be able to have a good job or live in retirement, to create the memories that you will have with you for the rest of your lives. The federal government needs to help in both the supply side and in the accessibility. So in the supply side, I do agree that it's important to build those 3 million new homes. We must assist with rental assistance. We must assist with tax incentives. And my Home of Your Own Act would actually recognize that people like in Santa Fe can't afford to stay in the place that they grew up. And when you find a house, it's too expensive and you can't afford the down payment. So it would provide a $30,000 down payment assistance grant. We've been doing this in other places. I've already funded a community project doing exactly this. So I want to take that project nationwide, and I have a bill called the Home of Your Own Act, which will do exactly that.
Thank you. We will now move to the candidates' 1-minute closing statements in reverse order from their opening statements. So, Candidate Claudia Schillich.
Again, thank you for this time. Thank you, all of you, for being here. Thank you for listening to me. I'm the alternative for consideration for this position. I look at this position as being very important. It's a position that I really feel a lot of us would benefit from because I intend to represent all 18 counties, not just select areas, but all 18 counties. I also intend to know my counties and know what the needs are, and I'm going to be present. I'm going to be present for all of you and show you exactly what I can do. I've already been to DC, so I know what the process is all about. Thank you very much.
Candidate Leger Fernandez.
I want to go back to the idea of the acequia and us all working together to address and create a better future for us. We create that better future by working together, by not using fear or hatred or division, but by actually recognizing that we are stronger when we do that hard work. And I have been working hard to address the cost of living, to increase and address healthcare accessibility, protect your freedom to have your own decisions with reproductive health, and delivering federal resources to every single corner of my district have benefited from the federal resources I brought home. I'll do more of the same if you bestow your vote upon me and re-elect me. I want to thank the League of Women Voters. I want to thank everybody who's listening. Participation is key to our democracy. Every election is the most important election of our lifetime. Muchísimas gracias.
That concludes this evening's U.S. Representative District 3 Candidate Forum. I want to thank Bill Church, editor, and Patrick Dorsey, publisher of the Santa Fe New Mexican, and Henry Lopez and his team of Lopez Integrated Technologies for broadcasting the forum. It will be available for future streaming on the New Mexican's website, sfnewmexican.com, and on our website, lwvsfc.org. I also want to thank Santa Fe Preparatory Schools' Aaron Schubach, head of school, and Nick Stefocic, director of facilities, for their generosity in providing the school's founders room free of charge for the candidates forum. For more information on election and the candidates, read the League's voter guide. It's available at lwvsfc.org and vote411.org. We want to remind you that if your question was not asked, you are welcome to stay after the forum to talk to the candidates. For those of you who are watching online, if you have questions for the candidates, go to vote411.org for the candidates' contact information. Be sure to make your voice heard in this election by voting, early or absentee or at the polls on November 5th. Please join me in thanking the candidates for their participation. And good night.